Welcome back to Basic Bananas Radio, where we share tried and tested ways to grow your brand and get more customers. Everything from the latest in marketing and branding, right through to growing your team and creating an irresistible culture.
Hi, and welcome back to Basic Bananas Radio. In this episode, I'm talking to the fabulous Miranda Barrett, and we're discussing all things public speaking. Miranda and I met at an event that we both spoke at in Seoul in Korea, and this woman is full of wisdom. She's very caring, very generous, and just an amazing human. And I can't wait to share her insights with you in this episode. Hi, and welcome back to Basic Bananas Radio. Today, I am joined by the one and only Miranda Barrett. Good to see you.
Hello. Good to see you too. It's been a few months.
It has been a few months. So for anyone who is listening right now and is not maybe seeing the video version here, so it's actually quite cool because Miranda is sitting in West Virginia in an Airbnb and looking all summery and glamorous. It's morning for you. What time is it for you?
Yep. It's 6:45 in the morning.
Oh, it's so early for you. Okay. And for me, it's 8:30 at night. So way past my bedtime, or 8:45 in Australia in winter. So I'm wearing like hoodies, like a really woolen jumper. And we were just, catching up before we hopped on so how I met Miranda is that a few months, no, maybe a few weeks, last month, about a month ago, we were in Seoul in Korea, where we were both talking at the My EO Women's event. And Miranda, also who runs Capacity to Scale, was making sure, looking after the speakers and making sure there was some sort of uniformity and continuity across the speakers, and also just making sure that we were giving our best, which we always do, and that the crowd was really loving us. So what I thought we would do today is talk to Miranda, who is an expert on basically helping speakers to be more amazing and also leveraging the gift of speaking as a business owner. I thought I'll bring her on to ask about this particular topic. So thanks for being here today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. And I feel like we're on equal footing right now because it's very early for me and very late for you. So between the two of us, we have just about one full brain, right?
Well, I agree. You look, and I am a bit struggling with my language at night because I'm more of a morning person, and I'm noticing myself not being super succinct right now. And it is because I'm not an evening person. I hope you are a morning person. So thank you for getting up.
I'm definitely a morning person. If it was 9 o'clock at night for me, you'd have about half a brain on me as well. So I appreciate you being up so late for me.
Luckily, I only need to ask questions, and we need your brain mainly. So maybe tell us a little bit. What's cool about you and why I'm so excited to share your wisdom is that you've worked for and with EO Global for about 10 years, and you've been to so many events and you've seen so many speakers. And EO, for anyone here who doesn't know, Entrepreneurs Organization, and I'm on the board of Entrepreneurs Organization, I'm a member also, and we are a tough bloody crowd. We are a tough crowd, and I've seen also EOers react to certain speakers in certain ways. You've seen a lot more. You've seen 10 years of that as a professional. So maybe we start with what are some of the worst, not naming speakers, but what are some of the worst things you have seen people do on stage? And then also what are some of the best, most memorable things that you have seen?
Sure, absolutely. And yes, it's been a privilege to be in the entrepreneurial event space for about 15 years. And during that time, well, you really get to see the good, bad, and the ugly. And sometimes at events, my job was to be the person in the back of the room, very quietly opening and closing the door. And it'd be a very busy job because so many people would just be sneaking out the back, sometimes quietly, sometimes not so quietly, because they were just not happy with the speaker. And during that time, you pay attention and you really get to see, what is it that turns audience members on and off with the speaker. And you're right. I mean, entrepreneurs, they are a tough audience. And I think it's because they value their time so highly, which really we all should do, right? It's our only non-renewable resource. And for me, being on stage is such a privilege for anyone. And if you're not making the best use of the audience's time, yeah, they have every right to vote with their feet and sneak out that back door. And I'm going to hold it open for you, because it's just so important when we've invested our time and money to be at an event. And it just breaks my heart when a speaker doesn't bring the game. So to answer your question, I think that the number one thing I've seen go poorly with speakers is just selling, right? Is getting up there and talking about how amazing they are and how amazing their product is and why we should buy their book, attend their series, use their consulting services, whatever it is. And I understand that a lot of speakers use public speaking as a business channel, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. But if you let that impact the content of your speech, if you're showing up to sell and not showing up to give, it just creates this automatic barrier between you and the audience, and neither of you is going to get what you want from that relationship.
I agree. I had this discussion the other day with someone who asked, hey, what is your number one tip that you would give a speaker, a new speaker? And I said, you know what? The best thing you can do is exactly that. Is some speakers show up to get something, some speakers show up to give. If you just show up to give, you will eventually get way more than you can ever imagine. So don't worry about the getting, just go there and give. Just give. Don't be super strategic about all the getting stuff that, some people teach you to do. Just go and give. So I'm not surprised that you mentioned that. Now, who comes to mind as one of your most amazing speakers that you have ever seen? Does someone come to mind straight away? There's, over the 15 or so years.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many, and they come from places that even just sometimes in little small breakout rooms, right? So Gina Malakan Long was an amazing speaker at a GLC. She's an American. She's a brain scientist, talks about like the psychology of breakthroughs. And it was an incredible event. At the last minute, the keynote was unavailable to speak at this GLC, and she was slated to be a breakout speaker. And literally the night before, probably around 10 or 11 p.m., the organizers went to her and said, "Would you be willing to go on as the keynote in the morning?"
Wow.
And opportunities like this don't come along very often, right? And she knew that, and I think she was ready for this moment and pivoted and both saved the day in a very non-dramatic, no fuss kind of way. Probably spent most of the night staying up, and she had her family with her too, young kids. Spent most of the night up preparing, and then just delivered this absolutely amazing keynote that brought the house down on the next morning. And you never would have guessed that she had just been given, slated as a keynote probably 12 hours before or less. And I mean, for event organizers, which is the role that I had for many years, speakers, there's kind of two kinds of speakers, right? There are those that understand that they are part of the team and they're to do a job. And there are those who think that they're the star and that the whole event revolves around them. And you can guess which speakers get invited back and referred to other organizations. So I sort of look at speakers from two different angles. It might be a little bit different than an audience member. It's both, yes, they are there to deliver amazing, impactful content to the audience, and that's the most important thing. But what are they like to work with, right? Are they sending their materials in on time because we're juggling dozens of other speakers? Are they reading the instructions that we give them? Are they taking time to understand the audience? All these behind the scene things are so important to people pulling together a complex event program. And those are the things that stick with us. And when it's time to refer people to other organizations, because event organizers are all talking to each other, those are the people that come to mind as much as the content that's delivered to the audience.
I love that. I feel like everyone here who is listening, who wants to be a speaker or who is already a speaker, that's such a great reminder to just be cool to work with and not to be a diva. I think I put in my speaker kit, when people ask for my speaking kit, I always say, I'm not a diva. Don't worry. I don't need the chocolate coated strawberries, even though I do like them. I don't need the
I don't know where my chocolate covered strawberries got to in Korea, because I certainly asked for that. No.
I know I didn't get the red carpet or the gluten-free crackers.
I can tell you some horror stories. I mean, we've had speakers show up drunk. We've had speakers show up with like a last minute, I need you to make 1,000 copies of this sheet of paper and put it on everybody's chair. We've had speakers who didn't tell us that they had certain, requirements for the stage until the last minute. all these state or speakers who don't plan to arrive until, an hour before they're going on stage and everyone's having an absolute panic attack. So there's just so many easy things that speakers can do to help the event organizers run a clean program. And it just like guts me when they don't do that, because to me it feels like a betrayal of trust, right? Like this event is trusting you to be a part of their program, and you've decided it's more important for you to, have the first flight out the door and be delivering your speech with your suitcase right there, and sending that signal that you've got better places to be.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is because so many of our listeners, most of our listeners are business owners, and some of them are already speakers, most of them probably aren't. Something that you also talk about is that you can leverage this skill, this being a speaker, to grow your business. Can we talk a little bit more about that? How can business owners go about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, public speaking is an incredible channel for business growth because it gives you the opportunity to reach so many people at one time, right? Instead of one-to-one phone calls. And it sets you up as this expert and authority. It lets people see your personality and your values. But when you show up and try to sell from the stage, like I said earlier, it's just such a turnoff. So showing up to give and showing up to everything, everything that's in my head, I'm here to give to you, right? I'm holding nothing back. I'm not going to say like, oh, if you want to learn more about this, you have to get my book, right? That's cool.
Yeah,
so as far as, as a business channel, I mean, yes, you want to be speaking to your target audience. You want to know where those people are gathering. You want to understand, the event and how you can give value. And then I always say, when you're speaking at an event, you have a temporary superpower, right? Because you've experienced this many times, right? You come off the stage and you just get flooded with people who want to talk to you. It's a sort of this amazing temporary glow at an event, and the next day, I'm sure you have people coming up to you, telling you what a great job you did and so on. And so what you've got to have ready to do is continue that relationship, like have a way to build a bridge, as I call it. So your bridge to the next step. So whether that's, joining a newsletter to stay in touch, whether it's you've got a webinar set up for like the next stage of your content, whether you want people to be able to book a call with you easily. So you're not pushing anything on them, but you've got something ready, right? You're ready for that next step to keep the connection going after you've left the event.
Yeah, I love that. And I always find personally, just sharing from it's almost like a bit confidentially, when I do events like the EO ones, I always have nothing. I have nothing. I have not even a newsletter. I have nothing, because also the topic that I talk about on courage is not really, I don't have something on the back end of that, and I never push a single thing. And I'm actually okay with that, because that's the audience. When I speak for other small business groups, I would definitely, especially if it's a marketing topic, again, I would have something. If somebody comes to me and asks for something, I would have the next step, which probably is a masterclass, which we run, which again is a free thing, so that they can come and see if they like us.
Right.
And as you say, people always come and even check you out. They come and check you out on LinkedIn, and then if they like what they see, they might ask you for the next thing. But I have to admit, honestly, for our last gigs and the ones that I've been doing for you, I have nothing, and I don't think I've ever picked up business from these events, because I also didn't, go in to do that, because I'm a member, and we have different rules around it. So I've been the one that hasn't been following this advice, but I totally agree with you. And I agree.
Yeah, and well, I think you're right. It depends on the audience, right? So similar, like for me, the speech that I gave in Korea, I used the event branded slide deck. I didn't have a QR code, anything, because people like that, if they want to find you, they can find you, right? Like we're all connected.
I found you.
But yeah, you found me, exactly, right? You made it. Well done. But yeah, for industry groups, it's a little bit different, and I think it's about making it easy for them as well. Like it is more convenient. So sometimes that's a QR code on the last slide. Sometimes it's a handout, just whatever is appropriate. And I don't see that as being salesy. Like it's literally, you're not pushing them to do anything. You're just making it easy for them in the event that they do. But you're right. It's knowing your audience and knowing like what's the accepted norm for that group. Because you and I both know, like standing up from the stage and trying to sell to EO members, that's when they tiptoe out the back door.
Yeah, and that's when you get tiptoed out the back door too.
Exactly. That's when I'll open the door
front
and let you
Yeah,
let those
exactly.
people.
Which I actually, I agree with that policy. Now, a lot of people, they see me speak at different events, and then I always get messages. I get messages on Facebook and Instagram, and I probably get more messages about this than any other topic, even though that they should come to you for this question. I'm not the expert that you are on this topic, but I always get asked, but Franziska, where can I get speaking gigs like you do? And I don't actually have all the answers other than I started speaking for really tiny events for free about 10 years ago, maybe 40. We started Basic Bananas about 15 years ago. So maybe I started about maybe 12, 13 years ago, speaking for small business associations, Chamber of Commerce, sometimes a room full of 7 people. I did a lot of that stuff, a lot. And then from there, I guess it just snowballed and people started to see me and recognize me and then refer me to this thing and then refer me to a speaker bureau and then refer me to the next thing. But is there a faster way? Because I've been doing this for a long time now. Is there a faster way than talking to a room full of 7 people?
Well, I'm sure those 7 people really appreciated you. So
It was, yeah, they
right.
did. And I love them too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's what you've described as the most common route. And in a way, I think it's okay because, you want your content has to get better, right? Like you get better, like through with anything through practice. You have to have that opportunity to speak to small groups, to do free events, to speak to the chambers of commerce and work your way up from there. Now, I think the quickest way to really expand your impact is something that entrepreneurs don't love, and it's a spreadsheet. It's a list. It's, when you go on LinkedIn, you see all these people posting at conferences and you think, oh, that would have been a great event for me. I wish I was there. And the good news is it is going to happen again in 12 months. So getting organized, and if you have an assistant, this is a perfect task for them. Really just keeping a list and doing some research on what are those events taking place where my ideal audience is gathering. And Chat GPT will answer this question for you. You can literally type it in, I'm a marketer. What are the top 10 events I should be attending in the US? And it'll give you a list. And you just need to start doing a little bit of research. This is one of the things that we do for clients is, build a list of 50 and look at when those events are taking place. And in some cases, you might have just missed it, but they're going to be looking for speakers in 6 months. So getting speaking gigs is really playing the calendar game. It's getting proactive and understanding that speakers are selected 4 to 6 months or even longer in some cases to an event, and you have to be ready. And you can use that gap in time to start reaching out to people on the event staff or the learning staff, the education staff, whatever they call it at that organization, and introduce yourself and start getting in front of them and make those connections on LinkedIn and share a video with them, whatever it is you have, and get on their radar. Because when the speaking call opens, that's when everybody's reaching out to them. So you're going to be the smart person who does that in advance and gives them the opportunity to assess you in advance and maybe even get chosen for a keynote spot in advance. So really, entrepreneurs hate spreadsheets for the most part. I understand that, but otherwise you're going to be that person who's just watching your LinkedIn feed, seeing all these amazing events taking place that you should have been attending. But you have to be proactive and get in front of that.
I like that. I spoke to one of my friends the other day and she said, I just got my assistant to make a whole list of speaker bureaus all through Asia Pacific. I said, you know what you should get her to do? You should get her to make you a list of all the events that you want to talk at. There's my brain at night not functioning. Because being on all the speakers bureaus in the world is not going to help you because you still have to be proactive. So I love that you share that. But now the second question is, we all get really annoying messages on LinkedIn. And so do these event organizers. So first question is, who should you connect with? So I guess the event organizer, if you can find. And secondly, how can you send a message that stands out, or how can you connect with them in a way that is not like every other Joe bloke that is trying to get into their pants?
I think your English is doing great. Yeah, so good question. And you're right that, as someone on the other end of that, you do often get inundated with messages. But, first I think doing it in an off time is really helpful. Sending just a connection request sometimes has more luck than sending, I'm not a LinkedIn expert at all, right? A lot of associations will have the email addresses of the people who select speakers available. And, you can send an email and a LinkedIn. So I think there's all kinds of different ways to reach people. For organizations that are really important to you, you can start by offering to write content for them, or places that you're already a member of. So you don't have to I wouldn't recommend jumping in with, I'm amazing, I should be the keynote speaker for your next big conference, right? How can you give? How can you help them? They are looking for content for their members, educational content, learning, writing, blogs, publicity, things like that. So there's always something you can do to help. So just depending on how important that organization is to you, how big it is, how big their staff team is, there's always ways to get in front and get top of mind for them. You just have to be willing to either be persistent yourself or have an assistant that you can put some time towards spelling out, we're going to do this series of messages. We're going to send them this. We're going to write this for them, things like that.
That's really cool. So again, asking how can I add value? And even I find that sometimes resharing other people's content on whichever channel we're on also may get them to see, oh, who just reshared my content? And, again, probably getting your name in front of them however you can in a way that is giving, rather than a lot of people that approach this speaker thing just approach it from this very needy, desperate place. And I think that is why so many wannabe speakers, and sorry to speak so frankly here, that's why so many wannabe speakers are just never getting any good gigs, because it comes from this desperate place rather than, hey, how can I give? What can I do
Right.
to make this person's life easier? Yeah.
Yeah, it really brings to mind, I was sourcing speakers for the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards, GSCA, the program EO runs. And we had a very small budget. And I remember a speaker's representative reached out to me and was trying to pitch the speaker. And I knew the content would be good, but I shared with him that we had a really small budget. And his response was, well, I won't get paid very much then. And that was an immediate okay, we're done here, because I really felt like his motivation was purely financial and not understanding my needs as an event planner and what did I need, the content that I needed for my speakers and my audience. And yes, there's always financial considerations, but to be so blatant about well, I'm in it for the money, that was it. And certainly not someone I was going to refer again. Because of that motive. So yeah, I think showing, like we said, showing up to give, understanding the needs of the audience and what's going to make the biggest impact with them. It does require some persistence for sure. But I think that's the most authentic and genuine way you can show event organizers what you bring to the table.
Incredible. Are there any other final things that you would love to share? And then I'd also love to find out a little bit where people can connect with you and how they can find out more about the work that you do. So first,
Yeah,
do you have any final words of wisdom or anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
Yeah. So, I mean, the other area we work with speakers is on presentations, and it kills me how many speakers show up, with a presentation that's not optimized for the needs of the audience, right? And I'm talking to anyone who has more than words on a slide, right? Anyone who's ever reading their slides, for people who aren't breaking up their presentation with videos or polls or things like that, they will just read slides for an hour. And it's one of those things that for me feels like a betrayal of trust, right? Because you're putting your needs as a speaker ahead of the learning needs of your audience. So I think to anyone who is fortunate enough to have the privilege of being on stage, look at your presentation through the eyes of the audience. And yes, it's much easier to have a bunch of words on a slide because it's a prompt for you as a speaker, but that means you're putting your needs first, not your audience's. And really think about how can you use, more full slide photos, break it up with different changes of format that make your presentation more engaging and interesting, because that's how the learning happens, right? That's how the audience is going to retain what you're there to talk about. And if you're not caring about that, then what are you even doing on stage? And so I think as speakers, we have that obligation to be constantly understanding how people learn, how our audience is going to retain what we're talking about, and modifying our presentation, putting their needs first to really make the maximum impact.
Such great last, words for today, other than where to find you, is put our audience's needs first, always.
Yes.
Yeah. And the rest will be taken care of. If we do that, if we show up with an open heart and a giving heart, and we put our audiences first, the rest will be taken care of because people will want to work with you. Other people will want to also hire you to speak at their events. And from there, things will snowball. And that's
100%.
That's the beauty of doing this.
Isn't it wonderful? Yeah, I love that that's how the universe works. And I've seen it time and time again. And with the people that we work with. And then that's people in the audience will want to bring you in to speak to their audiences. So exactly as you put it.
Yeah. Now, where can people connect with you and find out more about you?
Absolutely. So our website is capacitytoscale.com, and I am pretty super active on LinkedIn. If you go on there now, you'll find all my lessons from working at summer camp for the last 2 weeks in the mountains in North Carolina. But normally I'm posting about speaking. Just the last few weeks have been about catching snakes and running zip lines and sorting camper mail and just being away for 2 weeks. But always love sharing everything I know in LinkedIn as well.
I can't wait. I'm going to go read that right now before I go to bed. And you are obviously a fellow adventure woman. You love nature. You're always out and about. And you have also we both have the privilege to be able to run this business from anywhere we go. So while you're catching snakes and doing zip lines and flipping over boats with your sons, you're also running your business from the road, which is incredible. Thank you again for joining us so early for you. And what's on the program for today? What are you doing today in West Virginia?
Today, I really do need a day to catch up on the business, and we're going to do a quick hike to a waterfall. We're here at New River Gorge National Park in West Virginia, and then we are loading in the car and heading off to our next location.
Lovely. Well, you have a lovely day, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
To get more from Basic Bananas and to learn new ways to grow your business with clever marketing, visit basicbananas.com.